Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the MARIMACA Copper Investor Presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Just simply type in your question at any time and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during today's meeting. However, the company will review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it's appropriate to do so. Before we begin, we'd like to submit the following poll, and I'd now like to hand over to CEO Hayden Locke. Good afternoon, sir.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon and good morning, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to MARIMACA Copper's Exploration webinar. Our video will cover off our journey of resource growth up to the most recent mineral resource estimate at our flagship MARIMACA Oxide project, as well as recent drilling results not included in the MRE, and finally, to cover off the ongoing exploration potential within our extensive land package in Chile. Following the presentation, we'll provide some time for interactive Q&A, and the questions can be submitted via the platform. And with that, I'll hand over to Sergio.
All right, Hayden, thank you so much. And hello, everyone. As Hayden mentioned, in this webinar, we will provide for you an exploration update. This exploration update, including first, overview of the results of our most recent mineral resource estimate. This was released in October, and the corresponding report is really filed last Monday. And this is basically refers to the impact of the new results and a discussion about that. And but also extend to a review of potential for growing the resources, both by extensions of the oxides of the deposit, but also the potential of increase the resources in terms of sulfides beneath the actual oxide blanket. And beyond that, the potential for other resources like MARIMACA repetitions, nearby deposit, and also including regional potential too. Next, please. One important thing that is necessary to say about MARIMACA is that it's a project that consistently shows an increase of resources over time. Since the discovery in year 16, the resources have grown at least 4 times, from 250,000 tons in the first estimate in year 17 to what we have right now, which is close to 1 million tons of copper contained in our last October resource estimation. But we will try to demonstrate you, and I will try to show you in this presentation, is that there is still room for increase the resource, both at deposit scale, say like extension of the deposit, but also beyond the deposit. Next, please. This slide shows the summary of drilling meters that we use for the estimation of this year. What we try, or the company decision for the exploration program in year 22, was to decide to improve the resource category of the deposit. Because previously in our estimation from year 2019, published in 2020, was a ratio of 50% of a measure indicated to inferred resource. So what we'll try with the drilling of 41,000 meters this year is try basically to improve the category of the resources. This is our main objective. But with this, we also include, in addition to the RC drilling, that is type of drilling that we use for the infill, adding some diamond drilling, say close to 3,000 meters of diamond drilling for both geologic and geotechnical objectives. And, And for the resource estimation, that we closed the data at June of this year, we captured something like 19,500 meters of drilling, mostly at the RC. This included the RC that we drilled up to June this year, but also what we drilled in year 21, which we used for the exploration of deep sulfide, but also to test the extension of the newly discovered resources in terms of mixed and secondary sulfides. So this accounts for the total of 19,500 meters that I mentioned. And the map of the figure shows in color with the histograms, the drill holes that we use for the estimation, and in blue, the remaining infill drilling that is what we will use for our final resource estimation that we are currently working on it, and we expect the results for the first quarter of next year. The results of our most recent resource estimation was not relevant in terms of improving the resource category, which was our main objective, as I mentioned. But basically results in a significant increase of the resource. This is reflected in numbers as we increased 98% of the measured indicated resources and 92% of inferred resources. That can be noted. So this accounts for the total of close to 1 million tons of resource that we have. It is necessary to mention that in this case, we adjust some of the technical and economical parameters. So we use $4 per pound of price copper. We also adjust and use the mining cost and processing cost number that were produced from our last preliminary economic exercise from year 2020. And this results impact part of the number of resources that we got, but most of the impact in increase of resource coming from new resource properly, say basically the increase of mixed and secondary sulfides, but also an increase of additional, say, Chrysocolla, Watt resources from borders, but also from some previous considered leached units inside the oxide deposit that resulting from the infill drilling. So the infill drilling demonstrated that some of the previously leached units are really mineralized units, and this increase of resource is established that MARIMACA is one of the largest copper discoveries globally in the last decade. At least in Chile is one of, if not, is probably the discovery of last year's. With this, especially if we consider the number of 1 million ton resource, and at the same time, we confirm that because the nature of surface exposure of most of the deposit and the continuity of the deposit, things like the strip ratio is very low, 1:1, and but at the same time we have still good expectations to increase the resources from north, from southeast of the actual defined deposit by the resource. Next, please. This is the slide which you can compare. The models, the resource models that we used in year 19, as I mentioned, published in the year 2020, is compared with the actual resource in terms of geometry of the mineralized units. And a simple comparison shows that obviously what we have is an increase in the mixed and secondary sulfide that extend below the actual oxide deposit. And in the 3D figures on top, it's easily to see, but also is more clear showing in a long section that's shown in the lower sections. If you compare the section of 19 as compared with the section of 22, you can see what I mentioned in terms of the more continuity and extension of the mixed and secondary sulfide deposits in purple and red colors, but also that there is some extension, especially to the south. You see more bluish color that represents chrysocolla in areas that were previously more leached or non-mineralized units, but with the infill, we definitely found that is already mineralized in terms of chrysocolla or what it borders. And to the north, we are still waiting for results for the infilling. So as I'm showing you right now, we have good expectation about the results, because you can see in the map to the right, which is one of the maps that our most recent press releases that summarize the results that we have from the new holes. And contrary that we expect in our previous interpretation at 100 meters apart hole that shows that mineralization was mostly wood. In this case, what we found is that this type of mineralization results in more brockantite atacamite, which is directly related to the higher grades. So we have really good expectations that probably we will have more nice grades of copper in our estimation of that coming in next results that coming in next year. I will mention then the extension of the mineralization that is shows in the map to the left in terms of potential extension of the actual oxide body to the northeast, to the southeast, and probably part to the little bit to the west and to the east. But we want to show you a short 3D view using Verify of what the impact could be of the new results from the northwestern part. And as this 3D view will show you, we will use in this orange color what is represent the above 0.6 envelope. And you can see that to the northeast, we have not a very continuous information about what can be the extension of the above 0.6 mineralization that is directly related to the brockantite atacamite mineralization. But new holes, as you can see from for example, hole 129 and hole 132. For example, hole 132 intercepts 118 meters of 0.78% of copper, including 24 meters and 62 meters of 1.23%, which is really good grades, absolutely unexpected in this northeastern part of the deposit. So we have really good expectations about that, the possibility that we can find another high-grade cores in the northern part of the deposit, and as the figure shows, those are still open to the northeast. Other good possibilities that we have to increase the resource are certainly the sulfides. We try in year 21 to drill some deep holes for exploring the target of primary sulfides beneath the oxides. But as you remember, what we really found is the extension of unexpected mixed and secondary sulfides beneath the oxide that not really found the primary mineralization. But we still thinking that our target defined by magnetometry, which is located east and deep from the actual oxide body. Remember that the geometry of the deposits is like a large tabular body, roughly northeast oriented and is dipping eastward. So the potential defined by the magnetometry to the east, but located at depth, is still open, and I think that have good possibilities considering the precise relation that we have between the magnetic contents of magnetite with the mineralization as shown in the graphic that is shown in the slide at the left. We have a nice relationship of magnetite with high-grade sulfide. So the target is still open, but what needs to be explored is deep holes, because we need to drill still far east as our common location that we used for exploring beneath the oxide deposit. And this is probably means a major effort in drilling more than 1,000 meters holes for test target. But we are pretty confident that the target still exists, and the potential obviously is still there for many geological reasons that we found in the actual drilling and in the deep drilling of last year. So the potential is there and is very, very attractive for sulfides. Next, please. We also have nice potential for satellite style oxide mineralization in what we call the district area, which is roughly represents potential of resources not more far than 5 kilometers from what is the actual location of MARIMACA. The map to the left shows the reduced to pole magnetometry, which is high resolution magnetometry, and shows the very well defined magnetic targets to the north, but also some targets to the east. And map to look at the right shows what we got in terms of potential of resources obtained in results of our last exploration drilling in 2021. We have already, just for remember that we have already discovered mineralization of MARIMACA style at Mercedes, which is very similar to what we got at MARIMACA. And we have a nice IOCG type mineralization at Cindy to the north, and some oxide mineralization at Roble, which probably represents the high parts of the IOCG deposit with more hematite rather than magnetite, as we have at MARIMACA, Mercedes, and Cindy. And at Roble we have a more IOCG mineralization imprint, because we have there some gold related to the copper mineralization. So numbers that shows in the map represents already potential results that we can confirm by exploration. but the numbers represents in really good potential for more resources that can be can increase the base of resource that we have at MARIMACA for the future development of the project. And this figure from Verify figure shows what can represent the satellitic deposit that we discovered in terms of real potential for resources that can be added to the actual resource from MARIMACA. The figure shows the MARIMACA resource, and to the north, the extension of the actual deposit to Sierra and Tarso, but the locations of Mercedes, which is very close to MARIMACA, roughly a kilometer to the north, and Cindy and Roble to the east, as compared with the layout of the plant and dams of the project. Next, please. And for close to finishing the presentation, I invite you to take a look of this figure. This figure represents the magnetometry that we run in extension of the original surveying of the district. We extend this north and south, so we have right now a belt of more than 23 kilometers of high resolution magnetometry along that we call the Nahuayan belt, which demonstrate the extension of the probably extension of magnetic anomalies that resembling MARIMACA, Mercedes, and deposit that we know, especially if you go to the north, and it's a little bit change in resolution to the north as compared what we can observe at the central part, but it's mainly due to the fact that to the north the area is covered by gravel, so the effect of gravels is noted in the apparent resolution of the magnetic anomalies. But we already have 9 nice anomalies that can be observed similar to what we have to the south. And we also ran some geologic reviews of a few outcrops that we can see at the north, and we already have observed some copper and magnetite mineralization in some outcrops related to the magnetic anomalies. And to the south, we have very clear evidence of copper iron mineralization related to the anomalies that we have to the south. So I think that beyond the MARIMACA and the satellitic occurrence, we already have an attractive potential for regional exploration along that what we call the Nahuayan belt for even more deposits that offers a nice potential for exploration in the future. So this is basically what I want to present you, and I let Hagen for closing words.
Thank you very much, Sergio, for presenting your discovery. As you say, it's one of the most significant in Chile in the past decade, and it remains very clear that there's a lot of potential upside, and we're still in the early stages of discovery. And with that, we'll take some questions which have been submitted via the platform. Continue to submit them, and we'll do our best to answer as many as we can.
That's great, Hayden, Sergio, and Nico, thank you very much indeed for updating investors this afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of the screen. But just while the company take a few moments to review those questions submitted already, I'd like to remind you the recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your Investor Meet company dashboard. Hayden, Sergio, I've just unmuted your microphones. As you see, you had a number of questions that were pre-submitted. You've also received a number of questions throughout today's presentation. If I may, Hayden, if I could just hand back to you and ask you please to read out the questions and obviously give a response where it's appropriate to do so, and I'll pick up from you at the end.
Thanks very much, Mark, and thank you to everyone who's submitted questions. There's a few that have been answered already, I think, by Sergio's presentation, but we'll read those out anyway. So starting off, the company's recently announced a number of drill results, which included the discovery of a new high-grade pod in the northern portion of the MOD. How will this impact future resource schedule for Q1, Q2, 23? And how will it impact the future mine development of MARIMACA? And lastly, how could these high-grade pods play a role in the future exploration of initial discoveries at Mercedes and Cindy? I might ask Sergio to answer the last question, if I could, Sergio. So how do those high-grade pods play a role in the future exploration of the initial discoveries at Mercedes and Cindy?
Right, Hayden. It's a really good question. From the experience of the infill drilling in the northern part of the MARIMACA oxide deposit and the discovery of these new high-grade pods in the northern part, I think that the main lesson that we obtain from this exercise is that sometimes for this type of occurrence in terms of oxides and sulfides, a wider drilling grid is not enough to capture the existence of those high-grade zones. In the case of Mercedes and Cindy, we really drill very few exploration discovery holes. And I think that with the results that we have from the northern part of MARIMACA, where we found there's really unexpected high-grade cores, I think that it's becoming a real possibility that at targets like Cindy, Mercedes, and others in the district, we will probably have still chances to define high-grade portions of these potential new deposits. And I think that this is the key role that the results that we obtain from the northern part of MARIMACA are so important for the exploration. Okay,
thanks, Sergio. And in terms of the schedule, we don't expect the infill drilling in the northern extent of the MOD to impact our schedule. We're still targeting getting the updated full resource out towards the end of Q1 or even just slightly into Q2, and that timeline remains intact. In terms of the development, this new high-grade zone in the north is unlikely to change the way we develop the project. I think the primary high-grade core of the MOD is still very much intact and from surface. What this may do, though, is add additional high-grade tons to our mine plan and extend out that high-grade tonnage mine plan. It's just going to improve the overall economics of the project. Moving on to the second question, how big could the oxide resources be in MARIMACA's land package? Sergio, another one for you.
All right, Hayden. I think it's for an adequate answer to this question, I think it's necessary to take in consideration and that in January this year, we already release a conceptual potential for the quantity and grade of mineralization in all the satellite targets located around MARIMACA that are showed in the slide right now. The potential that we really estimate is, I think, thinking in just the potential of quantity and grades. It was probably in the range of 120 to 170 million tons of between 0.3 and 0.4% copper. This is our potential estimate for all these targets. And taken into account that in the same release, we also provide an estimate for the MAMIX resource, say at that time the recent discovery extension of mixed and secondary mineralization. In the release that I mentioned, we estimate for the MAMIX a resource in the range of 30 to 50 million tons of 0.4 to 0.5%. But the real figure that we obtained from the resource of the 2022 resource is that the MAMIX, the resource already calculated in the estimation results as 88 million tons of 0.5. So it's not to buy guess, I mean. So I think that the figure that we have estimate for resources and new resources is really important. It's a substantial potential for near surface oxides in all these targets. And so this state what we was our thought about the potential for the areas close to MARIMACA. Referring to the rest of the land package, we don't have enough information to provide a potential for, say, Nahuayán Belt, for example, because we have just magnetic targets along the belt. Same toward the south of the MARIMACA block, and we have some ideas for the rest of the property, rest of land package, but not enough information like the information that we have along the MARIMACA district. We are just thinking that most of the land package to the south have a potential for manto type deposits. Same for the block that we call Sierra Medina, which is located, say, probably 50 kilometers to the east, which also have potential for manto type mineralization. So I would think that we have not just potential for oxides near MARIMACA, but the rest of the mining property that we have also a considerable potential for copper mineralization from both styles of mineralization, say IOCG or manto type.
Thanks, Sergio. Moving on, why haven't you drilled the sulfide target yet? Do you believe there's a possibility of a large-scale sulfide, and when will you drill it? I think that's one for you again, Sergio.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I think we have a slide that I will show you. We show in the presentation, but the previous one is one. Thank you. We discussed that we try to drill the primary sulfide when we drill deep holes in our 2021 campaign, and the objective for that time was to find deep primary sulfide beneath the oxide. The concept, the geologic concept, which results to be a myth right now, because at that time we think that it's impossible to have to produce a secondary sulfide blanket in a suspected low pyrite primary mineralization as suspected from a typical IOCG. But we proved from drilling, from deep drilling, that beneath the oxide we have mixed and secondary mineralization. So, and just few intercepts, isolated intercepts of primary mineralization. So I think showing the slide and take a look for the position of the magnetic anomaly, and knowing the relationship of the highest chalcopyrite occurrences and copper grades, of course, with the contents of magnetite. I think that the primary sulfide target is still untouched. I think that we have three main sources of information to pursue this target. I think that first, we know the structural control of the mineralization, knowing that the background control is north-south trending fractures dipping east. Secondly, we have information of the nature of mineralization that coming from the few intercepts of primary sulfide that we have, and we know the relationship of high copper sulfide grades with the higher magnetite and of course high measures of magnetic susceptibility. And third, the high resolution magnetic inversion model that is shown in the slide. So I think that all this anomaly basically shows a good relationship on what we expect from the geometry of the mineralization that can be the extension of sulfides. I think that I can imagine that the nature of the primary mineralization must consist in a series of subparallel massive chalcopyrite magnetite-rich bodies extending 100 meters of down deep. Then I think that there is still good potential for substantial primary sulfides. It must still be there, I think. Kenny?
Thanks, Sergio. Moving on to some questions about the resource. There have been some comments in the market that the operating cost assumptions used to calculate the resource are very different from what was used to previously analyse the project. Can you confirm this point? And then what's the justification for $4 a pound? I will take those. Yes, we're aware of the comments around the operating cost assumptions, and we can confirm that the operating cost assumptions that we used were exactly matched that of the PEA. Now, of course, there is obviously some room that we may have needed to update those costs, but in terms of the project and the best understanding we have of the cost to date, that is the most up-to-date study we have, and so we elected to use those costs. We did benchmark mining costs with our consultant and found that our life of mine average assumed cost of just under $1.80 per tonne of material moved was in line with the trailing 12 months for like-sized operations in this region. So we felt that the operating cost assumptions were reasonable and based on the most up-to-date study that we used. Hopefully the most recent disclosure when we released our 43-101 has allowed people to trace through those operating costs. In terms of the justification for $4 a pound copper, again, we benchmarked all of our peers in the lead up to this, and also did 3-year, 2-year and 1-year trailing copper price, and found that on average, most of the peers in the space were using just shy of $4 a pound. There's another question here. What impact do you expect a change in copper price to have on the total resources? In fact, what's very interesting about this project is it is very insensitive to copper price. So we've done some, as part of our operational mine plan that we're doing right now in order to update our internal financial models, we ran some sensitivities. And to give you an idea, the sensitivity between $2.50 and $4 a pound copper, we lose less than 10% of the total ore tonnage. So not very sensitive to the copper price. It is a very robust deposit, very defensive asset. What scale of operation is justified by this resource? Well, it's too early to stay at this point. There's a lot of factors that go into determining that, but almost certainly we can see a material step change in the production profile, the scale of operation. We would almost certainly expect it to be up to 50,000 tonnes of copper cathode for an increased mine life, but there is, of course, the potential that we can increase that scale. I would say at the upper end, we would be probably limited at about 60,000 tonnes just because the mine life becomes too short. So somewhere between 50 and 60,000 tonnes is our expectation at this point, but there's quite a bit of additional work still to be done. Sergio, one more for you. What are the key risks remaining for this resource in your view?
The main objective of our 2022 drilling campaign was to improve the quality of the resource, and then by this reduce the risk of tonnage grade for the world copper project resource. With the actual results, we don't envisage other key risk for the 2023 resource, and the reason is because main risk such as continuity and grading of the mineralization looks to be already solved, I think, especially if you take a look of the recent infill results. This morning we released another one that give us an idea of what we are obtaining in terms of good intercepts of the holes drilled in the northern part. So this kind of results not only confirms the continuity expected from the previous 100 by 100 meter grid, but increase the quality of copper intercepts and obviously confirms confirms the continuity and increase the quality of copper and not decrease the potential risk of going down with grades. And I think just taking into account the results that we have and we release, I think that the main risk of the 2023 resource in terms of continuity and grade, I think are almost under control.
Fantastic. I think that's the last question. Unless there are any more submitted, we will finish now. And thank you all very much for taking the time to listen to our webinar with Sergio, and we look forward to updating you again in the future.
That's great. Hayden, Sergio, thank you very much indeed. If any further questions do make themselves available, obviously we'll provide those to you after today's meeting. Could I please ask investors not to close this session, as we'll now automatically redirect you for the opportunity for you to provide feedback in order that the company can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of MARIMACA Copper, I'd like to thank you very much for attending this afternoon's presentation. That now concludes today's session, and I wish you all a very pleasant day.